Welcome, everybody. You are in the right room. Thank you for joining us from across the world and to all of our Canadians from coast to coast to coast. My name is Tina, and I'll be facilitating today's town hall in the focus and theme around World Refugee Day and Cuso's response to the complexities of the migrant and refugee situation, particularly in Colombia and Nigeria, but you're going to hear about other countries that we're working in. So before I begin, I just want to remind everyone that we do have live interpretation today. And it's an icon that you see circled on your screen right now that says interpretation. And you can choose the language of your choice, English, French, and Spanish, because we will have speakers speaking in their native language. I also want to highlight the Q&A button. This is an engaging platform, so please feel free to ask us questions. Those questions that you put in the Q&A box will be ones that we will consider for our 4 panelists and speakers at the end of the session. I also want to highlight the chat feature. You're more than welcome to chat amongst you. I know this is a robust Cuso community, so we welcome that. Right now, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement from where I am in Toronto. For many of you, Canadians celebrated National Indigenous Day the other day on Tuesday. It is important that we all learn more and understand our history. Land acknowledgements are a common practice in civic and community spaces across Canada. They're a small step towards reconciliation. For non-Indigenous Canadians, it's an opportunity to reflect on the impacts of colonialism and to be accountable to Indigenous peoples. Toronto is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and we're grateful to be able to live and work on this land. I invite you at this time, if you know the traditional territory from where you're from, to put that in the chat so we can actually see where Canadians are joining us from. For those of you who may be new to the Cuso family, first of all, welcome. Welcome to this town hall and welcome to understanding the programming that Cuso is working in partnership with. Cuso International is a Canadian charity committed to ending poverty and inequality. We work with local partners around the world to improve economic opportunities, enhance women and girls' empowerment, and work towards gender equality. Each year, we amplify this impact by mobilizing hundreds of professionals who volunteer their time, their professionalism, and their skills and experience. And I know many of you are on the call who've been supporters of volunteers, so thank you and welcome. It's always nice. And for those who haven't been a volunteer yet, we welcome you to engage with us and find out where you can fit in. A bit about World Refugee Day. We are aiming to recognize the strength of those who have fled conflict and persecution of their countries in hope of finding sanctuary and living a better life. And with me today, we have some great country representatives and experts that are working in this area. I would like to first introduce Natalia Zúñiga. She has more than 15 years of experience working in the implementation of international cooperation initiatives, as well as public policies and populations such as women, youth, children, Indigenous populations, and Afro-Colombian communities. For the past 7 years, Natalia has been the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Specialist Manager at the SCOPE program, and SCOPE stands for Sustainable Colombian Opportunities for Peace Building and Employment Project. In this role, she has led an element of the project called Ruta Inclusiva. It's technical assistance aimed at implementing practices and programs advancing inclusive and diverse work environments in the private sector. So bringing, tri-party partnerships of, INGOs, other partner stakeholders, but also bringing in that private sector element. So with that, I don't speak Spanish, but I'll say hola, Natalia. If you want to just say a quick hello to our audience, you can go ahead and do that now.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be with us.
Thank you. Next up, we have Pilar García. She has over 16 years of experience in international development programs and interaction with local and multinational stakeholders. Her capacity are with large projects, human resources, and volunteer management, in which she has developed partnerships and led programs on gender equality, economic opportunities for women and youth, sexual and reproductive health. She has worked in many countries in Latin America, including Nicaragua, Honduras, Colombia, and Peru. Pilar has a deep understanding of the region and the world's development context and enjoys working in multicultural settings. She has a bachelor's in law and a master's degree in international development. And she's no stranger to the Cuso International stage of town halls. Want to say a quick hello, Pilar? You're muted.
Yeah, definitely. Hello, and I'm very excited to be here during this important town hall. Thank you.
Thank you. And also joining us all the way from Nigeria, next up is Jerry Nwigwe. Jerry is a development professional and economist with over 17 years of experience in international development. Jerry specializes in rural development and livelihoods. He is the project manager of the Cameroonian Refugee Livelihood and Economic Inclusion Project funded by UNHCR, and that's why he's here today to talk about that program. Previously, Jerry led Cuso's ULEAD project. He has extensive experience, but it's not limited to market systems development, women economic empowerment, program development, and agricultural economics. Jerry is a certified SME credit manager and a project management practitioner. So thank you for joining us all the way from Nigeria. Do you want to say a quick hello, Jerry?
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
And we also have with us Cuso International CEO, Nicolas Moyer. Nicolas joined Cuso International in October of 2021. He is deeply committed to social justice and affecting global change. Nicolas began his career in international cooperation as a volunteer with a women's organization in Ethiopia. Since then, he has become a strategic alliance builder and a leader in the non-for-profit sector and has founded and led many large-scale interagency initiatives, including Humanitarian Coalition and Cooperation Canada. And with that, say hello, quick hello, Nick.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tina.
You're welcome. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the presentation. And what we're going to do is launch a poll. And I just want to kind of understand where everybody is coming in from. We've had, lots of registrants. There's lots of people on the line. So, as far as the context of the situation of refugee and migrants, before Nick gets into his opening remarks, what do you see as the basis for the refugee and migrant situation around the world? So it's in the 3 languages. I'm going to leave this up for a little bit. So please go ahead and respond. So yeah, I can see that media is definitely showcasing some of your responses. And I'm going to close the poll as over 80% of you have voted. So I'm going to end. I'm going to share the results. So you can see it's kind of split, but definitely human rights abuses and war are those 2 themes that are, drawing your attention as to why there is such a situation within refugee and migrant work. So I'm going to stop sharing. And at this particular juncture, I just want to highlight UNHCR's theme for this year. And their theme is the right to seek safety, whoever, wherever, and whenever. Whoever they are, seeking safety is a human right. Wherever they come from, what remains universal is the right to seek safety. And whenever people are forced to flee, everyone has a right to be safe. And with that, I would like to invite Nicolas to give us some global context, emerging trends, related statistics. No small feat in this theme or subject matter, but Nick, you have the platform.
Well, thank you, Tina, and hello, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Hola a todas y todos. It's really a pleasure to join you on this day, although it's a very somber topic we're talking about. I think I'm sure you, just as I do, are fully aware of the many crises that there are around the world. Whether talking about climate disasters, conflicts, political turmoil, economic crises. For all these reasons, the global refugee situation worsened in 2021. Last year. And that's after multiple years of getting worse. And so I've been asked to give you a bit of context. And I think, unfortunately, the numbers I have to share are quite daunting. Around the world, there are over 83 million, almost 84 million people that have been forcibly displaced in 2021. It's a huge number. It's almost impossible to comprehend. And if we try to give ourselves a sense of scale, that's more than 2.5 times Canada's population. It's more than double the 43 million that people that were forcibly displaced just a decade ago. And it's far more than were displaced in the period immediately after the Second World War. And over the span of the last year, refugee numbers also increased. So out of that number of forcibly displaced, refugees now account for over 21 million people. That's more than double the 10 million people of a decade ago. And they're everywhere. The list of countries that are affected by crises is actually too long for me to list now. People are forcibly displaced from crises like the one in Yemen or in Afghanistan, of course, Ukraine now, Ethiopia, and so many other countries. In fact, speaking of Ethiopia, East Africa accounts for 1/5 of refugees worldwide. And that's where the largest number of people were displaced last year, given the war and the civil conflict there. In the Americas, in the Western Hemisphere, in 2021, the number of Venezuelans that are displaced also rose, reaching 4.4 million people. You know, those numbers are huge. Frankly, they are mind-numbing, but really they're not numbers. These are women, girls, men and boys, families, broken dreams, profound stories of loss and hardship and suffering, also extraordinary stories of discovery and new beginnings. I think none of these people chose to be displaced, and all of them deserve a better future. And I wish I could say things look like they're going to get better, but unfortunately the outlook is actually quite negative for the period ahead of us. You know, the numbers are that there are over 100 armed conflicts in the world today, and that seems to be increasing. That 1/3 of the countries in the world are witnessing armed conflict in some form. And of course, conflict has devastating impact on people's lives. And yet it's only one of the drivers of forced migration. You know, I mentioned, of course, and I think it's prominent in all our minds, the global economic downturn and its impacts. You know, people are fleeing in search of protection from extortion, protection of their human rights, protection from criminal violence, seeking to reunify with their families, or simply just to create a better future for their children. And I think while all these stories are so real and personal and long lasting, you know, the real solutions to these are political. Political leadership globally and in many national contexts has really failed to resolve the situations that have caused these challenges. And in the face of all this hardship, a common global response has been to provide humanitarian assistance, and it's absolutely needed. It saves lives. It's also completely inadequate in terms of providing long-term solutions for those women and men, girls and boys that are displaced and need a secure future, which is why we all have a role to play. And I think that's really a critical theme for us to really hang on to. You know, at Cuso, we're seized by the global refugee and migration crisis, but we're also not a short-term humanitarian relief organization. But we know that we can help in long-lasting ways. Our strengths are in skill development, building economic opportunities, gender equality and inclusion, and in partnership. And so where relief ends and lasting solutions are needed, we have a lot to contribute to help marginalized and vulnerable people build brighter futures. And we're going to hear a bit about that today. I've only been with the organization since October. I've been so impressed by the quality of the work that our teams do right across the globe. Today, we're talking specifically about programs in Nigeria and in Latin America, where we work with the UNHCR, but where we also work on lasting solutions in a variety of different ways. And I won't pretend to speak to the topics that are ahead. I could give you an outline of the programs, but you will hear from the champions in our team that lead those programs directly. So I just want to thank you so very much for taking the time to be with us today. You know, we, all of us, I think, are global citizens, and our engagement is needed more today than ever. So thank you so much, and Tina, back to you.
Thank you, Nick. Those statistics you shared definitely show the scale of the crises. I think I can call it that. And now we are bringing in our country leads. And I'm going to start with Jerry. You know, Nigeria, Cameroon don't get covered by media, but it's an important opportunity for us to share the work that you're doing in the skills program and how it's building economic opportunities for Cameroonian refugees. So Jerry, I'm going to start the presentation again. I know we have some slides for you, but if you can kind of walk us through the project and give us a bit of understanding as to what the program is working to solve. Over to you, Jerry.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Thank you, everyone. The project is funded by UNHCR. It's Skills for Improvement of Lives and Livelihood for Cameroon Refugees. It's implemented in Cross River State and Benue State, Nigeria, working to improve skills and opportunities for refugees and host community members. In Nigeria so far, we have actually supported over 5,000 refugees and host communities since 2019, when we started the operation. And the stories we have learned from these refugees are very inspirational to all of us. You see people who transform their adversity to hope, setting our faith to building lives and businesses, and from sense of despair to a sense of community. We have much to learn from refugees about holding on to hope when going seems impossible. I'm just looking from a quote from Amela Koloda, which says, a refugee is someone who survived and who can create a future. Now let's look at the story from Yawu Irene, who is a mother of three who have been able to grow her simple provision business as a result of participation in our 2021 scale program. She was trained on entrepreneurship development. Now she has expanded her provision business, diversified to adding foodstuff and other commodities that are lacking in her immediate community. We're also looking at Ayun Blessing, who is a 34-year-old single mother of two, who was part of the 2021 skill program. She started with a retail shop, but she has grown and has enough income to support her children. Teresa Obi is also another focus for this intervention. She was also trained in 2021. She has 3 siblings. From her business, she was able to support these 3 siblings and also diversify. Divine is a 27-year-old mother who lost her husband as a result of the crisis. Right now, she has a stable income to be able to provide for the family. So what skill we have to do is to give hope to these refugees and provide skills for them to use those skills in identifying opportunities within their environment. That is basically what we do currently in Nigeria.
Thank you, Jerry, for sharing some personal stories of particularly Irene and Ayum, and I heard you talk a bit about Teresa. So it's really rewarding and meaningful when we understand the impact directly with the people who it's affecting. And now I would like to bring in Natalia Zúñiga. As I mentioned, she is the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Manager, and she'll be talking about Ruta Inclusiva and how it works and how we brought in the private sector into the partnership model. I would like at this stage to remind our audience members to use the translation button. It's that globe icon that you saw at the bottom of your screen, that you see at the bottom of your screen. Natalia will be speaking in Spanish. So Natalia, I know we have a few slides, and if you could prompt me as to when to change the slides, that would be helpful. Thanks very much. Over to you, Natalia.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Hola de nuevo para todos, mi nombre es Natalia Zúñiga, gerente de género e inclusión social y la persona que coordina esta iniciativa que se llama la Ruta Inclusiva. La Ruta Inclusiva hace parte del proyecto SCOPE y es un proceso de formación y un proceso pedagógico que brindamos a socios del sector privado para que puedan mejorar sus ambientes laborales y hacerlos más inclusivos. De esta forma, las personas que se vinculan a nuestro proyecto de empleo pueden permanecer mucho más tiempo en sus empleos, ya que sus trabajos pues, van a estar mucho mejor, mucho más agradables. Next slide, Tina, please. Bueno, la ruta inclusiva es como les dije, es un proceso, es una ruta que inicia con un diagnóstico inicial de la empresa privada en los cuales nos dice cómo están sus niveles de equidad e inclusión social. A partir de este diagnóstico hacemos un análisis, se formula un plan de acción con el socio para ver qué aspectos se deben mejorar y luego hacemos una serie de talleres, son 12 talleres que brindamos a los socios tanto de forma presencial como de forma virtual por medio de una estrategia de e-learning. Y por medio de esto vamos haciendo que el socio adquiera un conocimiento y mejore sus capacidades para contratar, retener y generar ambientes laborales más inclusivos. Finalmente, después de esta formación que hacemos, volvemos y hacemos otro diagnóstico final en el cual evidenciamos cómo estaba el socio y cómo terminó después de este entrenamiento. El socio formula una práctica inclusiva de empleo que ha desarrollado a lo largo de esta formación y finalmente el gobierno de Canadá y Cuso International lo reconoce por medio de un evento público en el cual se brinda esta distinción a las empresas que han participado y que han fomentado ambientes laborales más inclusivos. Next slide, please. Bueno, ¿Cómo ha contribuido esta herramienta de la ruta inclusiva a la contratación de población migrante venezolana? Ha contribuido muchísimo porque hemos podido generar un enfoque impactante en el sector privado, porque parte del reconocimiento de la importancia de las migraciones y de los aportes de las personas migrantes en una economía como en este caso la colombiana, pero también se aplica para muchas otros países de América Latina. Y a su vez, la ruta inclusiva tiene herramientas específicas para que las empresas puedan disminuir niveles de xenofobia, aumentar conocimiento y generar prácticas inclusivas que permitan la contratación de hombres y mujeres migrantes venezolanos. En ese sentido, tenemos un taller específico donde podemos, digamos, por medio de herramientas pedagógicas, hacer que las personas aumenten su conocimiento, genere sensibilización y flexibilicen algunas prácticas de contratación que permitan que muchas más personas se vinculen a estos procesos. Esta ruta inclusiva la hemos desarrollado durante más de 7 años. Hasta el momento, 70 empresas han realizado o están realizando la ruta inclusiva y esperamos poder impactar al menos este año a 30 empresas más. Es una iniciativa que puede desarrollarse en muchos otros países y está disponible, como les digo, tanto en su forma presencial como en las estrategias que todas las tenemos de manera virtual. Next slide, please. Bueno, aquí les voy a compartir 2 historias de éxito. La primera es una persona que se llama Loresley. Loresley es una persona migrante venezolana que llegó a Colombia en el 2018. Durante mucho tiempo tuvo que pasar muchas necesidades, durmió en la calle, trabajó en ventas ambulantes, vendió cafés en la calle y con este ahorro de sus ventas pudo montar un pequeño emprendimiento que le llamó Variedades Loresley. Luego, en 2019, conoció a Cuso International y así como lo dice Nick, con el apoyo y con una inyección de capital que nos ha dado las Naciones Unidas, el ACNUR, hemos podido fortalecer su emprendimiento y en este momento Loresley ha podido mejorar sus mercancías, mejorar sus capacidades y sus habilidades blandas para mejorar sus ventas, aumentando la calidad de vida de ella y la de sus hijos. Next slide, please. Por último, les cuento la historia de Andreina. Andreina también es una mujer migrante venezolana que llegó a Colombia en 2018. En Venezuela tenía una pizzería, la atendió durante más de 8 años, pero dada, digamos, las problemáticas en este país, vendió su terreno con el dinero que recibió, consiguió en los tiquetes para trasladarse desde Venezuela hasta Colombia, y cuando llegó a Colombia pudo conseguir un trabajo como estilista en una sala de belleza. Esta experiencia hizo que aprendiera o mejorara muchas de sus técnicas y en 2019 también, cuando se vinculó a la iniciativa de Cuso International y ACNUR, pudo potencializar todo su proceso, ya tiene su salón de belleza y este emprendimiento pues también le ha permitido mejorar su calidad de vida, tanto de ella como la de su bebé que nació en el marco después de la pandemia. Entonces, estos son 2 ejemplos de vida de cómo este trabajo mancomunado entre el sector privado, el sector público y organizaciones no gubernamentales como Cuso International potencian y generan empleo inclusivo para estas poblaciones. Next slide. Tina, maybe the video?
Absolutely. So thank you for
Okay.
sharing all of those informations around Ruta Inclusiva and the work that's being done with migrants in Colombia through the SCOPE program and in partnership. At this particular juncture, I would like to share a video. It have participants from the program speaking directly. It will be in Spanish, but there are English subtitles. So just be patient with us and we'll get this going.
Hola, mi nombre es Ana Cristina López, líder de gestión humana de La Receta y CIASAS. La Receta es un operador de restaurantes a través de las marcas comerciales Il Forno y Oaxaca, las cuales tienen presencia a nivel nacional en Colombia. En esta ruta estratégica entonces nos encontramos con Cuso International, quien fue un aliado estratégico en el momento de profesionalizar y aumentar los conocimientos técnicos del equipo de gestión humana, pudiendo brindar a más personas provenientes de Venezuela, hombres, mujeres o con otra orientación sexual, la posibilidad de tener un empleo digno.
Mi nombre es Fabián Gutiérrez, administradora de un punto de venta del forno de La Receta y CIASAS. Yo llegué en marzo del 2017 a Barranquilla y fue como que la oportunidad de poder salir de Venezuela a Colombia. Ana Cristina, una de las personas encargadas del área de gestión humana de La Receta, fue a comprar donde yo trabajaba. Le gustó cómo yo la atendí y me dijo, si tú quieres trabajar conmigo, envíame tu hoja de vida a este correo. Y hoy heme aquí, ya tengo 2 años en La Receta, enamorada de mi trabajo, no sabía que tenía vocación para esto. Llegó en el momento en que más lo necesitaba. Y dentro de la empresa ser ascendida ha logrado en mí una estabilidad mayor, ya que con ello puedo estar yo estable acá y poder ayudar a mi familia en Venezuela.
En este proceso aprendimos que ya veníamos haciendo muchísimas cosas en pro de atender poblaciones diversas, pero efectivamente logramos sistematizar y hacer de manera consciente todo el ejercicio de diversidad dentro de la organización, que sin duda nos ha aportado cosas valiosísimas y que sabemos que nos van a seguir proyectando como una organización modelo a seguir en este tema.
Sé que la historia mía se parece a muchas otras y agradezco mucho a La Receta por haberme abierto las puertas. Puedo decir que estoy parada y donde estoy parada firme. Digamos que si tú tienes un sueño, debes ir por él, no importando las fronteras.
So thank you, Natalia, for sharing all of that. It's really nice to, it's meaningful to hear directly from participants in the program. And now before we move on to the Q&A, I see there's 2 questions already in the Q&A box, but just a gentle reminder that for our 4 panelists, if you would like to have direct questions in relation to the theme of today, please put those questions in the Q&A box versus the chat. I see the chat has over 55 comments right now. I'm not sure if they're questions, but for any questions, please go to the Q&A box. And now I want to invite in Pilar. She's the country program representative for Peru. And as you saw and heard Nick talk about some of these daunting numbers, Pilar is going to speak to Cuso's expansion in partnership with UNHCR. We know there's a need for that expansion, but maybe you can share with us, Pilar, a little bit of the why, as well as what the program plans are. So you have the microphone, Pilar.
Hello, thank you, Tina, and thank you, Natalia, for giving a great overview of La Ruta Inclusiva, the inclusive route. That is one piece of what we do in the SCOPE project in Colombia, and that has been done for the last 7 years. Nick mentioned some daunting numbers about the refugee crisis of all nationalities in the world. And in Latin America specifically, we have a huge issue with the crisis of Venezuelan migrant and refugees that, of course, affects the lives of these people that are forced to leave their country, but also the lives and situation of the countries that receive or host these people. And that is why, with the support of Global Affairs Canada, we are expanding our SCOPE project that it's been so successful in Colombia. We are going to include 2 new countries, Ecuador and Peru, to continue and to replicate this successful program, especially because they also have very high number of displaced people from Venezuela. So I would like to give you an overview of the numbers in Latin America, especially in those 3 countries. And as Nick mentioned in his intervention, there is near 5 million Venezuelan people that have been displaced due to the political crisis or a violation of human rights. From those, 1.7 million are in Colombia, 1.2 million displaced Venezuelans are in Peru, and more than 500,000 Venezuelans are in Ecuador. The common thing about all these people is that they have no plans of returning to their country because there is not a short-term solution in view. They all work in informal sectors, as Natalia said. They sell coffee in the streets, they sell candies, or they simply beg for support in the streets. They work, they are victims of violence. They suffer labor abuse when they go to the host countries, sexual harassment, and many of them also suffer human trafficking, especially women and girls. You know, adding to all that, there is a very high level of xenophobia by the host communities because they do not understand or were not prepared to receive a high number of displaced people. And this is a common denominator in all the refugee crises in the world. Another important challenge that these people suffer is that they lack legal status. And without legal status, it's impossible to do almost anything. You cannot have a bank account. You cannot be hired. You might not receive health services. You might not be able to send your kids to the school. So imagine all the challenges and limitations these people suffer in these countries. So to respond to this situation, with the support of the government of Canada, we are amplifying, we are expanding this project in these two countries, Ecuador and Peru. So in the next 2 years, we will be supporting these people. And Nick was mentioning that, you know, many organizations provide support in humanitarian form that is definitely very needed. But once the humanitarian part is over and that is not sustainable, we need to think about long-term solutions for the socioeconomic integration of these people, right? So part of the results of our programs pretend this socioeconomic integration. So we have targets that we are aiming in these next 2 years. So with our SCOPE project in the next 2 years, implemented in Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, we hope, or we will, have 12,000 people with new employment and entrepreneurship skills. 6,000 people will be linked to employment. 1,400 small business will be strengthened. More than 2,000 migrants and refugees will be informed of regularization processes and basic human rights and labor rights in their places. 60 stakeholders supporting socioeconomic integration of Venezuelan migrant population. We will have those 60 stakeholders really engaged in our project. 40 companies will be participating in La Ruta Inclusiva that Natalia was mentioning, to have environments more inclusive, more friendly for Venezuelans, but also for vulnerable host community population. The program will be co-implemented by different Cuso partners with strong experience in the work with refugees and migrants, and it aims to the socioeconomic integration of Venezuelan people, as I mentioned. To support also the vulnerable host community members and replicating the SCOPE model. I think this is all I have. I also would like to mention that this project has been very successful, and it is been calling the attention of all people that we present the project because of the success it had in Colombia. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pilar, and thank you for contributing to solutions. What I really heard you drive home was the difference. Everybody's needed in this sphere, but the difference of driving long-term change. And this expansion definitely demonstrates that. So now shifting again a little bit to another poll to see how well you've been listening. Let me just launch the poll here. So many clicks. There we go. So what stood out for you in this town hall? We've had 4 great speakers talking about refugee and migrant work as the end mile of capacity building, sustainability, this livelihoods model of resiliency around economics. So was it the scale of the situation, the inclusion of support for host communities, the integration of the workforce, or gender equality policies? What stood out for you in this town hall? I'll just leave this up for another few seconds. 2, 4. Yeah, I think close to 100% of you have voted. So I'm going to end the poll now. I think some of you are switching your answer. Okay, I'm going to end, share the result. And so you can see it's kind of split between the scale. I think it's really impactful for me to know that we're doing this town hall and that it's been educational in helping you understand the other areas of the world that are dealing with this. The inclusion of support of host communities. Yeah, excellent. And the integration into the workforce. So I'm glad that Feminist International Assistance Policy was the last one there. It means that we've been communicating that that's a Canadian policy, and we're working towards that through all of our programming. So wonderful to see. We're good on time, and now I would like to move to some Q&A. We did get 2 questions in, so as I'm going through the advanced questions, please feel free to add questions into the Q&A box. But we did have 2 come in advance. One was around the form of support that you would like to see from the local and international community towards refugee and migrants and the countries that you're working. And I think this might be a good question for either Natalia or Pilar. And I'll throw the lance la balle, as they say, and see who would like to respond to that in around what you would like to see as far as support from local and international communities around the work that you're doing in country. Natalia, oh.
I can go first. Sorry, Natalia. Do you want to go first? Okay.
Okay.
Definitely.
No, right.
Jerry, I think you have your mic open.
Okay, sorry.
Definitely the support that we are receiving from donors is very important, because without that support, we wouldn't be able to respond with these very creative and innovative projects that have been proven to be successful. So I would call donors, either private or government or other agencies, to continue supporting these efforts. Natalia, I leave it to you.
Gracias, Pilar. Aparte del gran apoyo que dan los donantes, que quiero decir que el Scope se financia 100% con donaciones de ciudadanos canadienses con sus impuestos. Entonces también un gracias y un llamado también a que sigamos haciendo estos aportes que generalmente cambian vidas y transforman no solamente a la persona, sino a su familia. Y también como ciudadanos globales también tenemos una gran responsabilidad en términos de los aportes, reconocer los aportes que las personas migrantes hacen en nuestras ciudades y en nuestros territorios. Entonces también es un llamado a que disminuyamos los niveles de xenofobia, a que abramos nuestros corazones y trabajemos juntos con las personas en pro de un empleo inclusivo. Muchas gracias.
Jerry, please go ahead. I saw you raise your hand. I think that's a new feature
Okay.
for me in webinar,
Yeah,
but
okay.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tina. As we all know that UNHCR as a global body has a limited funding and resources to support 83,000 refugees we have in Nigeria currently from Cameroon. So that's where we need in those additional resources, because Cuso was in Taraba. Taraba is not from the northeast part of Nigeria last year, but we pulled out from Taraba as a result of lack of resources. And if you go to Taraba, you could see a huge need of refugees that are, quite vulnerable. They don't have any other means of support. So it's something that the global media is not actually reporting effectively for other countries to see what is going on, in Cameroon as regarding Cameroon refugees in Nigeria. So there is a huge, need for donors to step in to provide those additional resources. Because if you look at what we are giving to refugees, we are giving them starter packs after they have gone through our trainings. And starter packs are just items that will help them to set up their businesses. but it's on subsidy level because it's still not adequate to sustain a business over time. So the ideal case is if UNHCR is providing some resources, then we have donors that can match those resources to create a sustainable livelihood for refugees and host communities where we operate.
Thank you, Jerry. So I've just opened up the Q&A board, and while I'm going through them to kind of field them out to each of the speakers, there was another question that came in, and one was specifically for you around Cameroonians and the skills program. They asked if there's a link or a nexus between building up this livelihoods resiliency and overall peace building.
Of course, there is. It's quite huge because what we have done is to promote community integration. Promoting community integration with the host communities, and the livelihood we support is also helping to create that enabling peace. You could see that refugees and host communities all belong to one cooperative. They go to the same market. Their children are enrolled in the same school, so they also enjoy the same health facility in the host community. So livelihood is actually a major factor in conflict. And where you have, lack of resources, it can also brew, conflict. But as we are providing these livelihood sources, it's helping to make people self-sustaining. Why they make it's making them self-sustaining. It's also creating communities that are hosting the refugees.
Thank you, Jerry. So technology, Jerry's joining us from Nigeria. We've got Natalia from Colombia and Pilar from Peru. So do bear with us as our broadband and our bandwidth from certain countries might drop out here and there. But I think, thank you for all of the beautiful comments that we're getting for support and help. What are our options to help? So you'll be getting a recording of this, and there'll be an appeal that goes out afterwards. So lots of ways that you can contribute and help. Thank you, proud of you. I'm just going through. There's an organization and a nonprofit which works with immigrants in Canada. Does Cuso and can Cuso support us? So maybe I'll throw that to Nick. They're looking for, sorry to put you on the spot. It's from Sweeney, and there's an ask around an organization nonprofit which works with, I think the question is new immigrants in Canada. Does Cuso and can Cuso support? So I thought, sorry, that question I mixed up. I thought it was a question on getting Cuso to support immigrants in Canada. I can tell you that it's not a piece of the work that we're doing right now, but Nick, do you maybe want to kind of give a sneak peek into some of the conversations we've had around refugee and migrant work, or not?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, Sweeney. Thank you. If we do understand the question correctly, you're suggesting or asking around the role that Cuso can play in Canada with refugee populations. There's certainly a tremendous mobilization in Canada in support of refugees, and we've seen it repeatedly through our history. And that's true today and around Ukraine, as it is also for Afghanistan and other crises that have happened. Certainly, we are in solidarity with the work that is done in this country. We don't yet have a commitment to doing that nationally in Canada. And so that's something that we are certainly examining. We're very open to that. We're going through our strategic planning now for the years ahead. And certainly featuring prominently in our thinking is precisely this ongoing migration and refugee crisis around the world, which is, I think, unfortunately before us for the decade ahead. And so our role constructively in that is something we're examining, including what it might mean in Canada. But it doesn't it hasn't yet translated into commitments that we have. I think, as you can appreciate, there's more need than there is ability for us to respond. But certainly in the countries where we operate internationally and where we have contributions to make, as you've seen from the presentations of our colleagues, we very much are always seeking ways to contribute effectively. So if there's something specific that you're looking about, I'm sure you can reach out to our team and we can follow up accordingly.
Thanks, Nick. And there's an interesting question here around like formal employment. And I think it's probably a question for Jerry, since they're asking from Cameroon. Is there any work being done with migrants to support them within more formal kind of working environments versus more of the small SMEs, small and medium enterprises that the skills program has worked in? Jerry, if your microphone's working, you can answer. If not, we'll move on to another question.
Okay, in terms of formal employment opportunities, our responsibilities on the MSME development, we're not actually on employability, skills, or job placement, placing them in a formal sector, but there's a different partner who are actually working with government to ensure that they have necessary documentation to be able to work in Nigeria. Ours is on the business side, whether it's, business or whether it's in agriculture, that's basically our focus in Nigeria. But if anybody has the requisite certification to work as a Cameroonian refugees, we have government partners who are also supporting that process. So there are actually opportunities for Cameroonian refugees to work in Nigeria, not necessarily business, but Cuso's focus in Nigeria is on the development of businesses as well as the agricultural components.
Thank you, Jerry. So lots of questions around expansion and if Cuso is going to be accessible in other countries around the world. I think Nick alluded to the need is greater than what we can deliver from our organization, but we recognize that. And thank you for all of the pointed questions around other countries that absolutely need this kind of programming and support. It's something that we'll definitely share and take back with our programming team. And I'm just looking a little bit at the time, and I do want to leave our speakers with opportunities to share their own reflections. So at this time, I would like to bring us all back into the room. I'm going to close out the questions for now. And just kind of reflect and share. I know there might be some personal stories around this work that you would like to share, but what is something that you'd like to leave our Canadian and global audience with as it relates to refugee and migrants and the work that we're doing? And maybe we can start with Natalia.
Claro que sí. Bueno, mi reflexión final es que todas las personas tenemos muchas capacidades, independientemente de nuestra nacionalidad, de nuestro sexo, de nuestros credos. Entonces, es muy importante que la ciudadanía canadiense y la ciudadanía global no tenga ninguna barrera o ningún nivel de xenofobia en contra de la población migrante, venga del lugar que venga. Entonces, mi reflexión es que trabajemos juntos y que juntos podemos mejorar este mundo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And you have some time, so there's no rush in sharing your final reflections. And maybe we can go to you now, Jerry. What is resonating for you, and what would you like to leave our audience with?
Okay, thank you, Tina. What I would like to leave is, there is hope among the refugees, and we still need, support, from non-UNHCR resources, because even if you come back and see those that we have supported, you could see that the support is still not adequate. So even if it's in terms of, mentoring, from the international community, those who have done businesses and succeeded, we can link them up to those who are here, locally, to be mentored or to be supported or to hear their stories. Because while, bridging that kind of gaps, you could see that, one could feel, the constraints and challenges faced by refugees. They are just human beings, like I said from my quote, that a refugee is someone who survived and who can create a future. Most of us have not had that experience ever in our lives, but you will see people who have actually gone through those transformations, meaning that they are right now superhumans. So if we're able to link them up with people out there in Canada to hear their stories and see how they can also play a role in providing those, hope, and also providing those level of support, that would be great and awesome.
Thank you, Jerry. And maybe we'll move on to Pilar.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to share a personal story. 30 years ago, I was a refugee or a person displaced seeking for refugee in Canada. I'm Nicaraguan. I fled my country because of a war situation and violation of human rights. And I know how it feels. I know it's very uncertain. I've been desperate also as those people. So every time I live in Lima now, and every time I see a family with babies, small kids, begging for food or trying to make the day, I think of myself at that time. And I reflect that it's possible if you receive the right support the way I did when I was in Toronto 30-something years ago, you can move on and you can become a person who contributes to the society. So I really call you to support. I am really happy with my life now. I feel amazed to be able to support these people. So there is hope, and just contribute because there is hope for refugees and migrants. Thank you.
Thank you, Pilar. And Nick, I know you opened, maybe you'd want to dovetail that with some final reflections.
Well, I think we've heard some great things today, and I want to really thank those who have participated. I think the scale of the global migration and refugee crisis is, as I mentioned early on, really daunting. But they're stories of individuals. Pilar has just shared hers very generously. People who really want a better world and better lives and want to find a safe future. And we all have a role to play in that. I think, unfortunately, the world is getting more and more polarized on so many different levels. And we have to remember that, in situations like are being faced by people in conflict, fleeing climate change disasters, or seeking economic opportunities, that they deserve our support. And there are really things that you can do. I think as individuals, certainly if we talk to Canadians in this case, I would say we have a duty to champion these issues with our political leaders, that we can reach out in ways that cost us nothing to express our support for refugee policies and support for refugees internationally. I think that for those of you who know Cuso's volunteer program, I hope that you keep an eye out on the postings that we send out. There are some great opportunities to make a difference around the world. And if there's a match between your profile and something that one of our partners is looking for, hopefully that can turn into a lifelong experience for you and connections. And I'd also say that, of course, financial contributions are always welcome. They make a huge difference. And if any of you are able to dig down deep and find a way to contribute to Cuso's work, that would be hugely appreciated and go directly to the causes we've been talking about today. There's so much to these issues, and I want to thank everyone who's been involved, and I want to reassure you that we are committed to doing everything that we can to continue to expand our programs wherever possible in support of refugees and displaced people, and helping to build better futures, which is really what Cuso is all about.
Thank you, Nick. I'm just pulling up a slide here. Yeah, really addressing the growing need of displaced people. I think what stood out for me is that lasting change, that the work that you're doing, and it's a privilege to support and facilitate this conversation. I do invite everyone to stay connected through our Catalyst magazine, our social media platforms. There wasn't a whole lot of questions today. I think that means that everybody explained their role really, really well. But if there are any, we'll definitely get back to you. Please be patient with us a little bit. For those interested, Nick alluded that there is opportunities. There's lots of opportunities on cusointernational.org. We have a placement site. I also encourage you to sign up for our e-alerts, and those will just give you kind of the first opportunity to see them. So it's an automated system. It goes right into your mailbox. So I invite you to sign up for those e-alerts for automatic placements. And with that, I've lost my last page, sorry. I want to thank Global Affairs Canada and really acknowledge the financial support of UNHCR and the Government of Canada, as well as Cuso's donors and supporters. Thank you for the many ways all of you support Cuso International. Thinking about Pilar, lived experiences of refugees and migrants, especially women and children, I invite you to support the vital, long-lasting work Cuso is doing to support these communities. We couldn't do this work without you, and we invite you to donate today. So thank you for joining us. Please stay safe and in solidarity. Bye for now.